Who would have thought that the place where the dead rest would be the place where a root worker would feel most alive? Not in a garden, not in the temple, not in a ritual room, but standing peacefully between graves, where the air seems a little bit heavy and the silence hums louder than any church bell. The graveyard is where everything slows down, where the veil thins, and where the spirits speak freely, if you know how to listen to them. In Hoodoo, the cemetery isn't just a place to bury the dead. It's a place to make promises, to ask for justice, to pull straight from the dirt, the ground, the soil, the roots. Not all cemeteries are haunted, but every single cemetery is sacred. Hey y'all, I'm BlaqueWitchYaya. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and today we are back with another Hoodoo video. And today we are going to talk about Hoodoo in the graveyard, because I'm sure many of you guys have heard people either joke or actually collect graveyard dirt, and it's a lot of meaning that comes behind it, and it's a variety of purposes as to why that person may be digging and scooping dirt into a mason jar. So we're going to break that down so you can fully understand it the next time you're in that type of conversation. So in Hoodoo, the graveyard isn't just a place to mourn the dead or to place flowers at a tombstone. It's a place to work, a place to speak, to conjure, to call on justice, and to make spiritual moves that the living world can't always handle. It's like a boundary space, a crossroads, somewhere between the seen and the unseen, between breath and memory. Most people are taught to fear the cemetery, and to be fair, if you don't know what you're doing, you probably should fear the cemetery. But for root workers, conjurers, and people walking in old tradition, the graveyard isn't a horror story. It's a sacred altar with thousands of names etched in stone, and not all of them are sleeping. Hoodoo is deeply ancestral. It's a practice born out of survival, hidden under the weight of oppression, shaped by the hands of people who had nothing left but spirit. And when the world wouldn't listen to their cries, they turned to the ones buried beneath their feet, the ones who have already crossed over, the ones who have already told their story. And that's where graveyard dirt comes into play. Now let's clear this up right now. Graveyard dirt is not evil. In fact, it's one of the most misunderstood tools in the entire Hoodoo tradition. People think it's something you use to curse somebody. I mean, you can, but that's not the only reason. So before we get into how to properly collect graveyard dirt, it's important to understand why soil plays such a major role in Hoodoo. In this tradition, dirt is considered a powerful spiritual material because it holds energy, specifically the energy of where it comes from. Whether it's the entrance to a church or a courthouse or the graveyard, the ground itself absorbs the emotions, energies, events, and spiritual residue of what happens there. For example, when I was manifesting my dream apartment, I collected some dirt from that apartment complex to add to my manifestation, and I'm still currently in that deluxe apartment in the sky. So it plays a role as to where the dirt is to connect yourself to that property, that location, to associate your energy there. Now, graveyard dirt in particular is seen as one of the most spiritually charged types of soil because it's tied to the dead. It's tied to people, spirits, energies. When someone is buried, their body returns, goes back to where it comes from, earth. That's where we get the phrase ashes to ashes, dust to dust. In Hoodoo, this isn't just poetic or something we sing in pre-K and we all fall down. It's not just a sing song. It reflects a belief that spirit still has presence in the soil. But even beyond Hoodoo, dirt plays a spiritual role across many cultures. People bury their feet in the ground to feel grounded, to release energy, or to reconnect with the earth. Some even cover themselves in soil for healing or for purification rituals. The earth is seen as a living force, something that holds memory, restores balance, and receives what we leave behind. So when a practitioner uses graveyard dirt in their work, they're not just using a physical ingredient, they're tapping into spiritual energy. Sometimes even working with a specific spirit. That's why dirt isn't just symbolic, it's functional. It connects you to the real spiritual forces that can help protect, harm, reveal, or empower. In Hoodoo, our ancestors are more than memories. They're active spiritual allies. And the cemetery isn't just where we honor them, it's where we work with them. That's why graveyard dirt isn't just about the person buried there, it's about what their spirit is willing to do for you now that it has crossed over. This is why practitioners build relationships with the dead over time, not just an occasional visit, because the graveyard is a place where bonds are made, spiritual bonds, and those bonds need maintenance. You need to pour into it. Just like any other relationship, it needs quality time, affection. Graveyard dirt can be used in many different ways, in mojo bags, jar spells, candle workings, foot magic, or even spread across a home for spiritual defense. But how you use it depends on where it comes from and the intention behind it. Some folks use it to anchor a spell to the spirit world. Others use it to speed up justice work or protect their home like a spiritual watchdog. The overall point is the dirt is never just dirt. It's activated by intention and by the agreement you made with that spirit that you connected to. While graveyard dirt gets a lot of attention, it's not the only type of spiritual soil in Hoodoo. Dirt from a courthouse might be used in legal cases. Church dirt can be added to for blessings or for forgiveness work. Railroad tracks, banks, your own front yard, all those dirts carry energy that can be used in spell work. What matters most is what you're using it for, where it come from, and what energy it holds. Like, you don't want to collect graveyard dirt from like a jail unless you're trying to do something to somebody that involves cuffs, but it depends on where you get it from. And Hoodoo teaches us to pay attention to the land beneath our feet, to be present, because everything carries a story, even the dirt, something that most people look down upon. Oh, this is dirty, get that dirt out of here. But that dirt carries purpose. So when going to a graveyard, some folks wear all black, others cover their head, some bring a walking stick, a bell, or just their Bible. There's no one uniform for graveyard work, but the principle is always the same. Going clean and going with respect. I always recommend bringing a small jar, coins for offerings, and something to cleanse yourself with afterwards, because this is spiritual work. You're not just visiting a grave for fun. You're there for a purpose. You're on sacred ground. After you make your offering and state your petition, you might feel something shift in the air, in your chest, or in your thoughts. Sometimes it's a sudden calm feeling, other times it's a breeze that might blow. You might even feel emotional or teary without knowing why. These are subtle signs that the spirit has heard you, or at least acknowledged you. Not all spirits say yes, but if you pay attention, they'll always respond. Because when you take from a grave, you're not just collecting soil, you're engaging with a spirit. You're calling on the energy of the person buried there, who they were, how they lived, how they died, and what kind of force they can offer now that they have crossed over. Dirt from a soldier's grave might be used in protection or war work. You want the spirit of a fighter, someone who knows discipline, strength, and how to stand guard. Dirt from a lover's grave might be used in attraction or binding spells. Not always a good idea by the way it pulls in the energy of passion and devotion. Dirt from someone who was a known criminal, outlaw, or died violently. That's the kind of dirt folks use in confusion spells or revenge workings. It's aggressive, sometimes unstable, and not something you use lightly. And then there's dirt from your own ancestors, your grandmother, your father, your auntie, someone who loved you in life and would still protect you in spirit. That kind of dirt is extremely sacred because you naturally have a connection to it in the physical world and in the spiritual world. That's blessing work, guidance work, elevation. But let me be clear. You don't just walk into a graveyard and start scooping up dirt and just be like, all right, y'all, bye. You need permission, both from the spirit and the land. You pay for that dirt with coins, rum, tobacco, flowers, candy, something. You don't want to come empty-handed and leave with a handful of dirt. You want to pay the spirit, whatever tradition you believe in, whatever spirit you believe is at the gate of the grave or the cemetery. Upon entry and exit, drop off some pennies. You want to leave something, some flowers, just to show respect. You don't just take, because when you take from a spirit without giving, that's not root work, that's robbery, that's entitlement, that's stealing, and the dead don't take kindly of being robbed. I know stories, quiet stories, whispered stories of people who disrespected a grave and brought that energy home with them. And it showed through nightmares, illnesses, people taking from them, all of that stuff. So just to avoid that, make sure you pay spirit and pay the energies that are there. You're on their land. Even just stepping into a graveyard requires a certain level of reverence. Before you enter, you speak, whether it's out loud or in your spirit, in your head. You acknowledge the space. You say, I come with respect. I ask permission to walk through this place in peace. Something like that. Some people say it to the gatekeeper. Some say it to the first grave near the entrance. Some say it to Papa Legba, to a shoe, to the main man in the corner. Whatever name or lineage or whatever you practice or however you show respect, make sure you do that upon entry, because you don't just walk into a sacred place with arrogance. You move slow. You don't step on every grave. You don't laugh too loud or play around. You pay attention, because not every grave is quiet. Some of them are active, and if your spirit is open, you'll feel it. As you walk by, you may feel certain energies from certain sites. If you're doing work in the graveyard, collecting dirt, leaving petitions, burying jars, you leave something behind. Even if it's just a few coins, a few flowers, even if it's just your words, your gratitude, your offering is a way of saying, I see you, I thank you, I honor your power. You don't have to be a full-time root worker to do that. You just have to be respectful and knowledgeable and know what you're doing. Don't let your first spell be you up here collecting graveyard dirt. Make sure you're ready for it. And when it's time to go, you don't rush out like, all right, I got my graveyard dirt. All right, I got my supplies. All right, let's go. No, you turn to face the grave or the entrance and say something like, thank you. Spirits, remain where you rest. May no spirit follow me out. I came in alone. I'm leaving out alone. Some people even walk completely out backwards, because they say when you turn your back to spirits, they can attack you. But if you keep your eye on them and make your way out, you should be good to go. You can pour some water out at the gate to release any energies that may be attached to you. Throw some Florida water on your hands, whatever. You don't just bounce out casually. Like, don't do an Irish goodbye, because what you picked up in the graveyard may not always be what you brought in. And when you get home, wash yourself. Get in the shower, spiritually and physically. Whatever mixture of spiritual bath you use, make sure you cleanse yourself, because you were just surrounded by a lot of energies. Because the spirit of the graveyard is heavy. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, even if you were just visiting a loved one, that energy stays with you. So do you remember going on a field trip and the bus would drive by a graveyard that everyone would say, okay, hold your breath? It might seem like just a childhood dare or a silly superstition, but the roots run deep. In many traditions, especially in the South, holding your breath was believed to keep wandering spirits from slipping inside you, because you are passing by that thin space between the living and the dead. You don't want to draw attention to your breath, to your life. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, I remember when I was living. Let's hop up in that body. No. Breathing too loud was almost like saying, nah, 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 boo, boo, I'm alive, you dead. So instead, you go still. You go silent. You show respect. Some even say if you inhale as you pass, you could take a spirit home with you. And once it's in, it doesn't always leave, because it's happy to be there. It's happy to be around some living energy. Why would it go home? Hoodoo in general has always had a deep relationship with death, not in a morbid way, but in a powerful way. It was almost like a part of your story that had to happen. When we weren't heard by the living, we turned to the dead, the cemetery, because that was our altar, our courtroom, our crossroads, our sanctuary, our safe space. Not every root worker uses graveyard dirt, and they don't have to, but every root worker respects it, because the dead knows things. And if you act the right way, if you show up clean, respectful, and real, the spirits will meet you halfway. But don't get it twisted. If you come in playing around, if you lie, if you take without asking, and if you know you're about to use that graveyard dirt for something stupid, some of the spirits will follow you and they won't knock on the door. When they do, they'll just come through the cracks. They'll show up exactly how you did. So the next time you pass a graveyard, don't look away. Just nod, offer a little prayer, say I see you. Because in hoodoo, the cemetery isn't a place of fear, it's a place of power. And power always deserves your respect. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. Let me know, has any of your workings called you to use graveyard dirt? Have you been curious about it? Have you seen someone else use it in a good way or a bad way? How did that outcome happen? Even outside of graveyard dirt, like if you wanted, like me, an apartment and you got some dirt from that place, how did that work out? Let me know how you have utilized dirt in your spiritual workings. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. And like I always say, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Until next time, you guys, Ashe, baby.